As I got near my desk, one of the supervisors poked his head out of his office and started screaming at everyone on the floor. "There is a second plane over Cleveland. Everybody get the F out right now. Get out. There's a second effing plane flying over Cleveland. Everybody get out, get out, get out, get out." Absolutely hysterical. Well, hey there, how are you? So today I want to talk about my memories of the fateful day, September the 11th, 2001, where I was, what I saw, what I experienced on that day. I want to say up front that I'm really not producing this video in order to generate any difficult discussions or arguments about what happened, why it happened, who perpetrated it, what the reasons were behind it. I'm just here to talk about where I was and to share my recollection and experiences of what is essentially my generation's JFK. In 2001, my wife and I were living and working in Cleveland, Ohio. At the time, my two oldest sons were barely more than toddlers. They hadn't even started preschool. We were living in a pretty rundown, rented house on the west side of the city of Cleveland. At the time, I worked for a mortgage company. I was a team lead in a customer service call center. I'd been out there doing the job for about 2 years or so. The building I worked in was a historic building. It was a turn-of-the-century post office building that was right along the river that runs through downtown Cleveland, just on the upside of what is called the Flats in Cleveland. So if you're familiar with that area, you might know what I'm talking about. We worked on the 4th floor, I believe, of that building. And the day started not too different than any other given day. I remember getting up in the morning, and what I used to do was I would get up and I would turn on a little TV that my wife and I had in the corner of our bedroom just to catch a quick look at the news. My hope was always to catch the weather and just make sure if it was going to rain that day, catch any early morning traffic reports before I started getting ready. So I turn on the TV. The volume on the TV is down because I don't want to wake up my wife or my sons. I remember seeing the images of smoke coming out of a tower and all the news tickers and all the little blurbs, but you know, nothing registered to me. There wasn't anything that stuck out as anything major. I just noticed that there was apparently some building fire, a high-rise somewhere, and I moved on with my morning. Got ready for work. At the time, I was taking a bus, so went to the bus stop, got on the bus, and now at the time, I used to carry with me a Sony Discman that would play compact discs and you have headphones on. But that Discman also had an AM/FM radio. That tuner would actually pick up a local NBC affiliate in Cleveland, just again listen into the morning news a little bit. So as I tuned over to that channel, I'm suddenly hearing Katie Couric's voice talking about a plane striking a building in Manhattan. I honestly cannot remember what I thought in that moment. I think I remember realizing that I didn't know if I heard that correctly. So I remember turning up the volume and pressing the headphones to my ears to listen to it again. And as I was commuting into work, this horrific story of a terrorist attack was unfolding. I'm riding a bus on my way into downtown city center to go to work, and I'm hearing the stunned reaction of newscasters and people on the ground, and I'm sure like so many other people, I just sat and listened in stunned silence. I got to work, got to my desk, started my day. The magnitude of what was happening had not yet really sunk in. It wasn't too long after that I realized I was hearing my employees talking to customers about the tragedy. When I looked up from my desk and I looked out over the rows of cubicles these customer service people sat in, a lot of them are standing up and looking around at each other and perplexed. I remember turning and seeing one of the higher-up supervisors coming down the row and saying, "There's a second attack. The other tower was hit too." It was a short time later that one of the supervisors came down the row and was motioning to all of the team leads and other supervisors that we all needed to head towards the director's office for a meeting. Obviously, we all knew what the meeting was going to be about, but I really wasn't prepared for what I heard when I sat down and the director started talking. Somewhere between the city of Cleveland and the leadership of the company I worked for, it was decided that the building we were in was no longer safe, and that all the buildings in downtown Cleveland of any significant height needed to be evacuated immediately. So we dispersed, we got out onto the floor, we started advising employees, "End your call right now, let the customer know you have to leave the building for an emergency, hang up and leave." It was like a fire drill at that point. I was actually part of the fire marshal team in the building, so I was responsible for a checkpoint at one of the exit doors to make sure that people were moving through single file and staying calm. We got everybody outside. Again, not just as a part of the fire marshal team, but one of the team leads. I was responsible for getting a head count of my employees. So got to the bottom floor, stepped outside the building. There was just hundreds and hundreds of people everywhere. It was a massive crowd milling around, conversations, crying, people trying to process what they had heard and what was going on. And here I was with a list of all of my employees that I was responsible for, and I had to track down each and every one of them and make sure that they were gathered together in one area. I can't even tell you how long that went on. I searched around, found every single one of them, and got them together. Got everybody gathered up, and then started to search out other team leads and other supervisors and other members of the fire team to make sure that everybody was accounted for. Ticking off names, handing in my list of employees to ensure that everybody was accounted for and safe. This was already the most unlikely of scenarios, that something like this attack would happen and that an entire city, let alone an entire nation, would be thrown into turmoil and chaos like this. It was at that point, once again, the director, the managers, the supervisors, and the leads were all gathered together and advised, "We have to go back inside the building and turn off the phones." Apparently, a lot of my employees at the time didn't make very rational decisions, acted on their instinct, and simply dropped their headsets and left, which meant that customers all over the country were still potentially calling the 800 number. The phone line would pick up and there'd be nobody there. So the business decision was made that a team had to go back in and turn off 300 something phones. As part of the fire team, naturally, I was listed in that group to go back in, and I wasn't worried about that. That's fine. You know, the customers are just as important as the safety of everybody. So myself and a couple of other folks, I honestly can only remember one of them, and I'll tell you why I remember him in a moment. We went back upstairs and began going desk to desk, row to row, pick up the headset, say hello, announce my presence. Is anyone on the line? If not, great. Hang up the phone and turn it off. If there's a customer, we apologize. Our building was evacuated. Please call back at a later date. Hang up the phone. Turn it off. What happened next, to this day, boils my blood. I understand that everyone deals with crisis situations in their own way. I understand that different people have different tolerances and fight or flight instincts. As I got near my desk, one of the supervisors his name was Chase, ironically, since we worked for Chase Bank, poked his head out of his office and started screaming at everyone on the floor. There is a second plane over Cleveland. Everybody get the F out right now. Get out. There's a second effing plane flying over Cleveland. Everybody get out, get out, get out, get out. Absolutely hysterical. And honestly, I froze for a moment, just in disbelief that, first of all, that he was just being this hysterical and losing his mind. But secondly, yeah, kind of registering the fact that we knew at that point that every plane in the United States had been grounded, and yet somehow there was a plane buzzing Cleveland, Ohio, and I didn't understand what I was hearing. And yeah, you know, my instinct kicked in a little bit. There was a little bit of a tension, but I wasn't moved to hysterics. Yeah, we were in a big building, right? We were, certainly, but we by no means were the tallest building in downtown Cleveland. And just to this day, I just feel this swell of disappointment and frustration that this person who was supposed to be there to lead other people in a crisis had lost his cool. So we finished our job, locked down the office, and we left. So we went back downstairs and we exited the building and rejoined our employees and the other members of leadership. And to my absolute disbelief, I heard a plane. And I looked up. And I saw a plane flying kind of in a big circle around downtown Cleveland. And I remember thinking, holy crap, he was right, there is another plane. And just having that moment of indecision again, how are we supposed to react to this? And the plane is actually headed towards the airport. So it wasn't too much longer after that we got the word from the corporate offices in New York that we were not going to reopen for the day, that we were to dismiss our staff and send them home. So we set about that task, going person to person, advising them, we need to go home. Do you have a way home? A lot of people took the bus, and there were a lot of people on the street in downtown Cleveland at that moment. Hundreds, thousands of people everywhere. Every sidewalk was jammed. The streets were packed with cars and buses, and nothing was moving. I remember thinking, I don't know how the hell my people are going to get out of here, but I don't know how the hell I'm going to get out of here. But I eventually did. Stood in line for what felt like forever to finally get on a bus, get my spot, start heading home. The trip home felt like hours. The path out of downtown Cleveland was just clogged with vehicles, and everything seemed to move at 5 miles an hour. As I was on the bus heading home is when I finally started to think about my wife and the boys, and if they had any idea what was going on right now. Thinking about that plane that buzzed over Cleveland, wondering if they knew what my status was, if they had any idea what was going on with me. I got home, and my wife was curled up on the couch with the two boys, watching news coverage of the attacks, and I kissed them all. I sat down with them, and like every other American, and like so many people around the world, we tried to understand and make sense of what happened when the towers fell. The rest of it is history. A lot of it is conjecture. For years, a lot of it has been arguments, disagreements. All of the consequences that the world has now endured following those attacks. As I said, I'm not really here to discuss those things today, but I think I wanted to come on here, tell this story, add my voice to probably countless other voices that are sharing their memories of what happened that day, September 11th, 2001. I guess I invite you to share your story in the comment section. I only ask that you be respectful. I ask that you not use this as a political platform. I ask you to share your memory of the day. Where were you? What did you see? Who was with you? Those are the stories I am interested in hearing. For now, I will just thank you again for watching, and I will see you on the road.